Ladies and gentlemen, even though I living here in New Mexico, I'm still a Tennessee voter. Now, this governor just may strip protesters their voting rights, and he just passed this law, and this is just really disturbing. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this. This article comes from the Washington Post. It says Tennessee adopts new law that could strip some protesters of voting rights. This article has been released on August 22nd, 2020. It says Tennessee protesters could now lose their rights to vote under a new law Governor Bill Lee signed with little fanfare Thursday. Protesters who camped out on state property, such as the activists who have demonstrated for months outside the state capitol against racial injustice, could now face felony charges punishable by up to 6 years in prison. Convicted felons are automatically stripped of their voting rights in Tennessee. The new law, which went into effect immediately, outraged civil rights groups who said the move is Tennessee's latest attempt to repress voting ahead of the November election. The racial motivation underlying the law is undeniable, said Kristen Clark, president of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. It's a clear backlash response to the Black Lives Matter movement and to people who are decisively protesting racial injustice and police violence. Clark said her organization is considering a sweeping lawsuit addressing all the way she believes Tennessee Republicans are trying to suppress and intimidate voters. To criminalize protest activity and disenfranchise voters on top, it defies principles that lie at the heart of our Constitution, she said. It's pouring fuel on the fire when communities are seeking justice, change, and reform. Tennessee is among the states not allowing voters to use fear of the novel coronavirus as a reason to vote by mail. In the state, it is a crime to distribute mail-in ballot applications. Last year, a federal judge blocked a new Tennessee law that sought to restrict voter registration drives. Lee didn't announce the signing or post about it on social media. Asked about the law during a state coronavirus news briefing Thursday, he said, quote, "I think what we saw was a courthouse on fire, businesses being broken into, and vehicles being damaged." Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, a car just, passing by. Anyway, we saw lawlessness that needed to be addressed immediately, and that was done so, according to the Associated Press. The new law also imposes mandatory minimum jail sentences for assaulting a first responder or participating in a riot. It also enhances penalties for vandalism of government property. The American Civil Liberties Union of Tennessee sent a letter to Lee on August 14, imploring him not to sign the legislation, writing that it attacks our freedom of speech rights, initially chilling the act of protesting by threatening those individuals with overly harsh criminal penalties. State Senator Ramesh Abari tweeted Saturday that the legislation would have made the late civil rights leader John Lewis and the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. convicted felons. "We serve the people and should hear from the people," she wrote, and this is ridiculous. And that is the end of the Washington Post article. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me get this straight. This governor of Tennessee, where I used to live, going to sign a bill to crack down protesters by stripping their rights to vote, or if they're involved in any riots, with the George Floyd protests, they will strip their rights to vote and possibly some years in jail, years in prison. What they're trying to do, ladies and gentlemen, is that they're trying to take away Tennessee's voting rights from protesters that do have the right to protest when it comes to what happened with George Floyd, anti racism, protests, right? Anti-black racism. So they're trying to crack things down by stripping their rights away and trying to prevent them from voting in the 2020 election. And so this is not only violating their First Amendment rights, but under the law, they're violating their right to vote. And so this is why I said we need to find out when is Governor Bill Lee's reelection? Is it 2021 or 2022? We need to find out his reelection so we can vote his ass out. Because this is ridiculous, y'all. That means if you're involved in a protest or you're involved in any type of vandalism or rioting, you know, he literally will strip your right to vote away. I mean, literally strip it away, and you serve years in prison for it. So I'm very concerned as a Tennessee voter. And yes, even though I'm living in New Mexico now, but I'm still a Tennessee voter. I'm still going to fly, you know, to where I used to live to vote in this year's election. But my point is that this governor is going to strip away protesters' rights to vote this November after he passed this law, sign it into law. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, if you live in Tennessee, living in Nashville, Memphis, Knoxville, Clarksville, Chattanooga, I think you guys just need to really take a look at this bill, and then challenging Governor Bill Lee, because obviously that means that they'll take all your rights away if you decide to protest against racial injustice. This is an attempt to attack people's rights to vote, and and strip away, and then try to do whatever they try to do, suppress the vote and disenfranchise black voters, so that really he wants Donald Trump to win in Tennessee. That's what looks to me. That's what's happening. So y'all let me know what you think about this. I got 3 words for you, Bill Lee. Shame on you. So let me know what you think about this. Like, click, subscribe, and remember to click the notification bell for all the news and commentary. With that being said, this Lions signing off. Deuces.